Save our opinions for later. We begin with just the facts. 49ers are now 8-3. Them's the facts. They got a 2-game lead in the NFC West over Seattle. They've won 10 consecutive regular season games against NFC West opponents. And for the first time in franchise history, have won consecutive road games up in Seattle. So that's a pretty good place to start because this is still the best rivalry in the NFC West. The Rams, even with an NFC title game win over the 49ers, have not supplanted 49ers and Seahawks in my mind. And I don't think they have in yours either, because we've just seen so much Shanahan ownage over Sean McVay in the regular season. 49ers and Seahawks always has that element of something weird could happen. And last night's game was dying for something weird to break out. There was the special teams play was begging for something really weird to happen all night long. Didn't quite happen, but these two teams bring out the best in each other at times, the worst in each other at times, and it's a real rivalry, man. The rivers run deep.
Well, no question. And, it's funny to me, there was one of the themes of this game was the fact that, the 49ers didn't acquire Jason Verrett and have had cornerback issues, and they're unknown about the two young corners. And both in that first half, Samuel Womack down the ball in the 2, and then you had Darrell Luter Jr. chasing down D. Eskridge, showing amazing athleticism to make that tackle to save a touchdown. Those two young corners last night definitely stood out.
And there was another rookie that impacted his special teams play in a great way. Ronnie Bell jumped on a fumble that Ray McLeod coughed up, and thank goodness he did that. That could have been a game-turning moment had the 49ers not recovered that. So rookies on deck for the Niners last night. Just the facts, and I guess this is a little bit of an opinion thrown in here, but the fact is that was not Brock Purdy's best game. When we sit around and we talk about all that Brock Purdy has done or might do this year, I bet you that game on Thanksgiving in Seattle isn't even in the conversation. He was efficient, though. 21 of 30. His completion percentage is always where it needs to be. He throws for 209 yards, a touchdown, and a passer rating of 86.7. The interception, the pick six, was a ball that he threw to Christian McCaffrey, and I'm sure Purdy would be the first guy to tell you that needs to be 2 hands south of where it was. That ball needs to come down, but the tip drill began, and in the only touchdown that Seattle scored, Purdy unfortunately threw that one away. But for that moment, I thought a very good, very efficient, sort of a just wear beige and blend into what is going on here. And what is going on here is a running attack with McCaffrey and Debo that is, like I said, really coming together.
Yeah, I mean, Purdy made a number of plays, obviously, and he completed 70%. Wasn't his best game, and the pick six, obviously, was the biggest negative. But, it was really almost like back-to-back passes there that were bad. Those were, I thought, his worst passes of the day. But overall, I mean, the 49er offense in the first half, I mean, the defense was fantastic the entire game, but the 49er offense in the first half had, 24 points and 200 and something yards, 224 yards. It was an impressive offensive performance, but not Purdy's best.
McCaffrey's 11 rushing touchdowns this season are the most by a 49er running back in a single season. What? I couldn't believe that. The glorious history of the San Francisco 49ers, it was Frank Gore's 10 touchdown season. There might have been another name on that list too who had 10, but McCaffrey, the first running back ever to punch in 11 touchdowns rushing. His 16 total touchdowns this season are also the most ever by any 49er running back in the history of the franchise. Again, this is just the facts. Here comes a little opinion, but I also think it's a fact, Larry. This guy's one of the single greatest weapons this franchise, which invented pretty much offensive weaponry in the 80s and redefined it. He's one of their greatest players of all time. Right now, if his career ends tonight, Christian McCaffrey goes down as one of the single greatest San Francisco 49ers to ever put on the uniform.
I mean, I just feel privileged, man. I've watched his entire career. I mean, I was doing the Stanford pregame show when he was at Stanford. He had a bowl game against Iowa that was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And the Niners swung and missed in the 2017 draft. They took Solomon Thomas third. This kid went eighth. I know John Lynch has probably been kicking himself ever since, and he found a way to right that wrong. And you knew when they traded for him last year, Damon, that not only was he going to have a good year last year, but that the next year, this year, was going to be like, oh my goodness, maybe the bust out greatest year of McCaffrey's career, because he was finally in a place where everything worked and where he was totally comfortable. He is just fit in so perfectly, and you're seeing the best of a great, truly great football player. And I can't wait to see what he does next week against Philadelphia. He had that amazing touchdown run against the Eagles last year in the playoffs. Maybe he can be the difference maker in Philly next Sunday.
So many talking head shows, are trying so hard to just jump with both feet right into a who's your MVP conversation way too early. Again, it's not even Christmas yet. Everyone calm down. It's too early to talk about MVP. But when we do, I think Christian McCaffrey will be the only non-quarterback legitimately in the conversation. And I think he will be in the year-end conversation for MVP.
No doubt. No doubt. He's having that kind of a year. It'll probably wind up going to a quarterback. Let's be honest.
It always does.
Seems like it's become a quarterback award. But he's having an amazing year. And to me, it's the cutting, the vision, watching him right now is just, he can catch the ball to the backfield. You can isolate him. What I saw last night, the best I've ever seen him, was the pick and slide, where he's reading blocks and he's weaving in and out. And he's always, we know he's explosively fast. He can get to the edges, hit, quick hitter inside. He can be gone. Lots of great second and third efforts. But as far as that natural pick and slide that the great running backs have, it's been somewhat of a work in progress. I thought last night was the best I've seen him just kind of weave through the defense. And that's next level stuff for him, man.
19 carries, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground to go along with 5 catches for 25 yards through the air. McCaffrey's 11 rushing touchdowns and 5 receiving touchdowns through 11 games make him just the 5th player in NFL history and the first in my lifetime since 1975. I was born in 75. He's the 5th player in NFL history and the first in my lifetime to record 10 or more rushing touchdowns and 5 or more receiving touchdowns through the first 11 games of the season. In other words, he is off to the single best dual threat running back start that we've ever seen. And in our lifetime, starting with Roger Craig, evolving into, Edgerrin James and Marshall Faulk and LaDainian Tomlinson. This guy is having a better year this year than any of them had through 11 games in any of their glorious Hall of Fame careers. And he is just ridiculously special. And I look, with all due respect to Brock and the quarterback and the importance of that position, I think Christian McCaffrey is the most important player on this team. There's no one that can come and do what he does regularly. Although it was nice to see Elijah Mitchell involved, running very well. And you called this out, Larry, a couple weeks ago. You said, Elijah Mitchell's almost been undone because he hasn't been put into leverage situations and he doesn't get everybody's best, or it doesn't just, it wasn't the moments where he needed to really shine. He's been put into some high leverage moments and he's thrived in them. Over 5 yards per carry last night for Elijah Mitchell. So that's a good sign.
Oh, he's such a nice player. I mean, he's got 4.3 speed. Yesterday, almost 6 yards a pop. 7 carries for 39 yards. He had a 13-yard run. He's got great instincts. So he's a great short yardage runner if you can keep the bodies off of him in the backfield. He's not the biggest guy, but he's got great feel between the tackles. He seems like he almost always gets what it's blocked for. Whatever you block it for, that guy will get that and then some. He always finishes falling forward, which is a running back coaches love that. He does not fumble. Knock on wood. That continues, but that goes back to Louisiana. He can catch the ball. I mean, his main problem is he's a smaller back who's kind of got a big man's game where he runs between the tackles. And you wonder about durability long term. But if he's healthy, and right now he is, he's really, really good. And Kyle likes to use him, Damon, as a finisher because he doesn't fumble and he does have great instincts. And if you see the 49ers in any kind of big situation going forward, get a huge second half lead, you're going to see them throw Mitchell in there for a few carries because he's very dependable. And, as I said, won't turn it over.
I'd still like to see Mason get a little run, but now I'm officially like splitting hairs of complaining, and there shouldn't be much complaining when you're winning 3 games in a row dominantly.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I like to see Mason too. I know Mason has big time potential. I see kind of a poor man's Marshawn Lynch with Mason, and I think he's an untapped deal. And I think if they had him and could spring him on a couple of runs and just kind of show everybody that, hey, this is a 3-headed monster at running back with all bases covered. I mean, I think the Niners have tremendous talent at running back, and I'd like to show off all of those guys because I think they're all a little different. And also, when a team shows that they've got 3 guys who they can be successful running it with, it puts even more pressure on a defense because it's like, oh my God, they just got a can full of guys. And we're not even talking about Debo, who's also a great runner, Ayuk, Ray, Kittle, all these other weapons that they have. To me, the play of the freaking year was I mean, if you want to talk about how a box score is deceiving, go look at the Seahawks box score from last night and look that Jawan Jennings had 1 catch for 7 yards. He had 1 catch for 7 yards. It was one of the best highlights of the season as he outdueled 4 different guys to get a first down when there was no way in hell he should have. So that was an all-heart play.
If Jennings' 7 yards were a newborn baby, it would have come out with a full beard wearing a suit. It was the most mannish 7 yards you're going to find on a football field this year. You're right. He was all man, all that is man in those 7 yards. That was huge. 49ers scored a touchdown, Larry, on their opening possession for the 7th time this season. They've scored an NFL high 52 points on the opening possession of games this season. I've always said opening drives at the beginning of games, coming out of halftime, and, how do you play out of a bye week are a real litmus test for coaching. And it just shows you how much Kyle can dial up some real trouble for teams when they're just, acclimating themselves into the game. The coin just landed on the ground. We're underway. Next thing you know, you're backed up to your own 10-yard line, and the Niners are having this incredible opening drive once again, happened up in Seattle. The 49ers scored 3 rushing touchdowns in the first half, were the most in a half that the team has scored since 2021. Brandon Ayuk has now scored a touchdown in 3 consecutive games for the first time in his career. He got out of Seattle with 2 catches, 50 yards, and the back-breaking score in the fourth quarter, which was among the most beautiful passes that Purdy threw all night long. And even though this is more of a special teams fact, I'll put it into the offensive fact just to save everyone time. Jake Moody, 32-yard field goal, and perfect on all 4 points after touchdown. Again, we didn't use the name Jake Moody in the game, which means he has a good game. Larry, we didn't really use the name Jair Brown in this game, which means he had a good game.
Yeah, and to me, the exciting thing about last night's game, and there were a number of really exciting things, but the exciting thing to me is the way you're seeing the depth of this defense bubble up. Now they've got Chase Young. Now because they've got Chase Young, man, Armstead and Hargrave inside look incredible, and Bosa's going off. But that second D line of Cleveland Farrell, Javon Kinlaw, Kevin Givens, Randy Gregory, they're doing nice things. And then you've got, Greenlaw looks rejuvenated, from the bye week. But, Warner and Greenlaw are tremendous. But now you've got, D. Winters starting to pop up, and Flanagan Fowles and Burks are making an impact. And then you look at that secondary. Yeah, they lose Afunga, but Mooney Ward, who I thought went down with a serious injury, but then it was just cramps. But you got Mooney Ward, Tayshaun Gibson. But I'll tell you the other thing is that now, Womack and Luter, and I'd even mention Ambry Thomas. I thought that interception that Ambry Thomas had yesterday, Damon, showed that he is a potentially excellent player. I mean, there's not that many guys he's physically everything you want. In some ways, Ambry Thomas is the physical prototype of what you're looking for in a corner, and I see why they drafted him so high. His talent is off the charts, and that interception was phenomenal. So you look at Lenore's young, he's playing well. Ambry's young, he's playing well. Jair Brown's young, he's playing well. Luter looks great. Womack looks great. They may have lost George Odom, and I don't know if people are suggesting Quantrez Knight, but Odom has either a fully torn or partially torn bicep. So they may lose one of their all-pro special teamers for the year. We'll find out more about that later today. But to me, seeing the depth of this defense and seeing Ambry Thomas and some of these young DBs kind of show themselves, all these guys can play. Womack can play. Ambry can play. I really believe what I saw from Luter. Luter can really play. So maybe, not getting a corner, and we'll see. Maybe the Niners say they still want Jason Verrett. Maybe they'll go for Verrett, but their defense is starting to look really special.
Why do you think it took the coaching staff several games into this year to start trusting Ambry Thomas and turn to him as a solution?
It's a great question. I mean, there's some inconsistency to the way he prepares. I don't know. He's had some moments where they're less than stellar, but I mean, I'm just talking about if you're looking for the physical prototype. This guy played at Michigan. He ran a 4.4 flat. He's 6 feet 190. That's like an ideal size for the corner. He's there. You heard Wilkes told us last week or the week before that he likes Ambry in the run game as a run defender, and then you've seen what he is as a pass defender. But to me, the highlight of his career was last night, because he ran the way he cut that route off and jumped it. It was and got the pick and then got his feet down on the sideline. I mean, it was a tremendous play. Tremendous play.
Back-to-back games with tremendous plays. Remember, he nearly had a 98-yard touchdown return, just a week before. So, sideline violation flag. But it was a good game for the 49ers defensively. 6 sacks up in Seattle. First time that they've had 6 sacks or more in a game since week 5 of last season. Nick Bosa with 5 tackles, 2 sacks of Geno Smith. He's now got 8 on the season, 51 in his very young career. He's 4th on the franchise's all-time sack list, and he is a half a sack away from Ahmad Brooks at number 3 all time. So I like his chances to be the 49ers' third most sack artist by the end of the Eagles game, hopefully. 49ers defense has held opposing offenses without a 100-yard individual rusher in 38 consecutive games now. That is the longest such active streak in the NFL. And look, Seattle didn't score an offensive touchdown. The Seahawks' first 5 possessions gained a grand total of 15 yards. And that's tough to do to anybody anywhere. And it's really hard to do to Seattle up in Seattle. That crowd is a great crowd. And I'll tell you, 49ers fans, Larry, they've taken over just about every single stadium that the Niners have played in this year. Niners fans didn't take over that stadium last night. Seattle will not let that happen up there.
There were an awful lot of people there.
Oh, sure. There were a lot. Did you
see the video of the parade of Niner fans walking into the stadium? I just saw it this morning. I was like, wow. But I didn't hear them like I heard them in Pittsburgh week 1.
No, there weren't enough of them to take that green highlighter color that's the worst uniform in football and just turn the place red. I mean, the 49ers go and play the Rams, and they're sitting in a red stadium down in Los Angeles. The 49ers it's a lot of red everywhere. Jacksonville, that entire stadium was red, for goodness sakes. So, look, all due respect to the Seahawks. Like, that's a legitimate football team. That's a legitimate franchise. They got great fans that are passionate, that don't sell their tickets to the opponent. And those are the kind of football fans that I respect. I really do. They might be a little nouveau riche for you old school diehard Niner fans, but look, the Seahawks are this team's chief rival, and you always want your rival to have a level of gravitas to it, because why are they your rival? It's because they can come out here and do the things that we do. And I've always respected the Seahawks in the Pete Carroll era, and I think a lot of 49er fans might have hated this team and been frustrated, but with an element of respect baked in there too. That is a well-run team. It truly is. And look, last year was supposed to be and they're gone and we never have to hear from them again. And they were a playoff team with Geno in the first year. It's
a good organization.
Is.
Let's be honest. I mean, John Schneider is a very, very good general manager. He's been there for a while. Him and Pete do a really good job. Pete coaches the team. John picks the talent. And, look what they've been able to do. I mean, DK Metcalf in the second round and, building up their offensive line last year, Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross. Last year, they went to the playoffs with 2 rookie tackles and 2 rookie corners. And look at the way they draft in the secondary with Kobe Bryant and Devin Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen and some of these guys. Boye Mafe was a second-round pick. I mean, they do a nice job. They've rebuilt their team. They're aggressive. They're not there yet. They don't have their quarterback. We'll see. If this team, I'll tell you what would scare the hell out of me is if the Seahawks got Michael Penix. If the Seahawks wind up with Michael Penix and the way it looks like looking at the mock drafts, I think Penix is going to go top 10, maybe top 5. He's, going in the 20s in a lot of these mock drafts, and they'll clearly have a pick where if they wanted to take Penix, they could. I don't know. That's an April conversation, but that would scare me if the Seahawks with those receivers got Michael Penix.